Imagine being a young girl, no more than 14 or 15 years old. You live in a small village that most people have never heard of. You have no power, no wealth, no influence. By the world's standards, you are nobody. And then, in an instant, everything changes. Not just your life, not just your family's life. The entire course of human history changes because of you. This is not a fairy tale. This is not mythology. This is the story of a real woman who walked real roads, felt real pain, and carried a burden that no mother should ever have to carry. Her name was Miriam. We know her as Mary. And today, we are going to unlock her story, not just as a religious figure, but as a human being, a mother, a woman of extraordinary courage, because history has so much more to say about her than most people ever get to hear. Let's start where history starts, with the facts. Mary was a Jewish girl from Nazareth, a small town in the region of Galilee in northern Israel. And when I say small, I mean small. Archaeologists estimate Nazareth's population at the time was somewhere between 200 and 400 people. She was not famous. She was not royalty, at least not by the world's definition. But here is something remarkable that historians often overlook. According to the Gospel of Luke, Mary was a descendant of the house of David, the royal bloodline of ancient Israel, the same lineage that produced kings, the same family tree that Jewish prophecy said would one day produce a Messiah. She wasn't nobody. She just hadn't been found yet. Now, what do we know about her life before that famous moment? Ancient texts, including the early Christian writing called the Proto-Evangelium of James, written around 145 AD, tell us that Mary's parents were named Joachim and Anne, that she was a deeply devoted young woman, that from her earliest years she was known for her faith, her gentleness, and her purity of heart. Was she perfect? She was human. But by every account that history has left us, she was extraordinary. Now we come to the moment that has been painted more times than any other scene in human history, the moment that artists, poets, theologians, and historians have returned to for over 2,000 years, the Annunciation. The angel Gabriel comes to Mary, and he delivers a message so impossible, so overwhelming, that most people, if they're honest, would have collapsed under the weight of it. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. Think about what that moment must have felt like. She is a teenager. She is engaged to a carpenter named Joseph. She has her whole life ahead of her. Simple, quiet, known. And suddenly, she is being asked to say yes to something that will change everything. Her reputation, her relationship, her safety, everything she had planned. And do you know what she said? She didn't say, "Let me think about it." She didn't ask for time. She said, "I am the Lord's servant. May it be to me as you have said." That response, those words, in 2 sentences, a young girl from a village nobody cared about, accepted the most extraordinary calling in human history. That is not weakness. That is not blind obedience. That is courage. Profound, quiet, unshakable courage. But here is what I want you to understand, because this is the part of Mary's story that breaks my heart every single time. Being chosen by God did not mean her life was easy. It meant her life was hard in ways most of us will never understand. Think about it. She travels while heavily pregnant, a journey of approximately 150 kilometers from Nazareth to Bethlehem. No hospital, no comfort. She gives birth in a stable, a place for animals, because there was no room for her anywhere else. Then comes the visit, of the Magi. And then, a king named Herod, who wants her son dead. Joseph takes Mary and the infant Jesus, and they flee in the night to Egypt. Refugees, strangers in a foreign land. A mother clutching her newborn child, running from a murderous king. And years later, when Jesus is 12 years old, they lose him in Jerusalem for 3 full days. 3 days. Any parent watching this, you know that feeling. 3 days of not knowing where your child is. 3 days of searching. 3 days of fear. Luke 2:48 captures the moment they find him in the temple. And Mary says, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." She was not a statue. She was not a painting. She was a mother who was afraid for her child. And that makes her one of the most relatable figures in all of human history. But nothing could prepare her for what was coming. The Gospel of John, chapter 19, contains one of the most devastating lines ever written. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother. Just 5 words. 5 words that carry the weight of the world. While almost everyone else had fled, while the disciples hid in fear, while the crowds mocked and jeered, she was there, standing, watching, unable to stop it, unable to save him. A mother watching her son die. There is an ancient prophecy spoken to Mary when Jesus was just an infant by a man named Simeon. He looked at her and said, "A sword will pierce your own soul too." On that hill called Golgotha, at that cross, that sword fell. I want you to really sit with this for a moment. She had carried him. She had nursed him. She had taught him to walk, to speak, to pray. She had fled with him in the night to protect him. She had spent 30 years watching him become the most extraordinary person who had ever lived. And now she could only stand there. In that moment, Mary of Nazareth showed the world what love truly looks like. Not the easy kind of love, not the comfortable kind, the kind that stands firm even when everything is being torn apart. The story does not end at the cross. After the resurrection, Acts 1:14 shows us something remarkable. The disciples return to Jerusalem. They gather in an upper room, and Mary is there, praying with them, standing with them in the early community of believers. The woman who had said yes at the beginning is still saying yes at the beginning of something new. Historical tradition tells us that Mary lived her final years in Ephesus, in modern-day Turkey, in the care of the Apostle John, to whom Jesus had entrusted her from the cross. To this day, the house of the Virgin Mary in Ephesus is one of the most visited pilgrimage sites in the world, visited not just by Christians, but by people of all faiths and none. Because something about her reaches across every boundary. Something about her speaks to every heart. And here is what history cannot fully explain. Across 2,000 years, in cultures completely separated from each other, on different continents, speaking different languages, she keeps appearing. In 1531 in Mexico, a man named Juan Diego reported seeing Mary on a hill called Tepeyac. She spoke to him in his own language, Nahuatl. She called herself the Mother of the True God. And on his cloak, an image appeared that scientists to this day cannot fully explain. The Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City is now the most visited Catholic pilgrimage site on Earth, drawing 20 million visitors every year. In 1917, in Fatima, Portugal, 3 shepherd children reported seeing Mary 6 times over 6 months. On October 13th of that year, 70,000 people gathered at the site and witnessed what became known as the Miracle of the Sun, reported by secular journalists, atheists, and believers alike. And in Zaytun, Egypt, between 1968 and 1971, an apparition of light in the form of a woman was witnessed by hundreds of thousands of people, including Egyptian President Nasser, Muslims, Christians, and non-believers. It was photographed. It was broadcast on Egyptian television. Whatever you believe, these events happened. These people saw something. History records them, and history cannot dismiss them. When I look at the full sweep of Mary's life, the teenager who said yes in a small village, the refugee mother who fled in the night, the woman who stood beneath the cross, the one who kept praying in that upper room, I see someone who teaches us something that history desperately needs to remember, that the most powerful force in human history is not armies, not empires, not wealth. It is love. Quiet, faithful, unbreakable love. Mary never wrote a book. She never commanded an army. She never sat on a throne. But 2,000 years after she walked those dusty roads in Galilee, the whole world still speaks her name. Every continent has a shrine to her. Every language has a prayer for her. Every culture has a painting of her face. That is not coincidence. That is history's way of telling us. This woman mattered. She still matters. And her story, this story we have just unlocked together, is one of the most beautiful in all of human history. If this video touched your heart even a little, please share it. Not for the channel, but for her, because her story deserves to be told. And to everyone watching, thank you for being here. On Past Unlocked History, where we don't just read about the past, we feel it